Time now for our Spotlight segment on this edition of CMS Connected. And in the Spotlight today, we are going to review Hippo CMS, company founded in 1999, headquartered in the Netherlands, an open source Java CMS platform with strong capabilities in personalization or for personalization and targeting, e-commerce, and more. And joining us, as she does so often in our Spotlight segment, from Falcon Software is Sunny Lenarduzzi. Sunny, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm excellent. So let's dive right into this. What do we need to know about Hippo? What's the history of the company?
Well, they've definitely got a history, that's for sure. They've been around, like you said, since '99. And they had a decent start in Europe and were gaining some momentum there, but they've been through a lot of iterations through the history of the company. And one of the things that I found really fascinating about this company, I think is kind of a rarity in the space, is they've actually never received any funding. So the entire thing's been bootstrapped by the company itself. So that I found pretty fascinating about the history of Hippo. And in 2008, like I said, they wanted to make their mark internationally. So extend beyond Europe. And so they rebuilt their whole product from scratch over 2 years. They implemented a new management structure. They appointed a new CEO, which is an interesting move in a lot of ways. It meant that they were ready to scale. And they also acquired US-based Blue Sunrise Inc. So they've basically gone from a services model to an open source model to an enterprise subscription model. And that's been since 2010. And that's when really we in North America have really taken note of Hippo.
All right, Sunny, let's bring in Scott Lewer for this conversation also, our esteemed co-host here on CMS Connect. That's twice I've used the word esteemed describing you today.
Exactly.
Anyway, I build you up so I can knock you down.
Yes, sir.
Earlier in this show, we talked about the partnership alliance of EMC and Hippo, and you had some skepticism about how that was going to benefit Hippo or EMC.
Yeah.
Talk about that and ask Sunny about that.
Yeah, so I think, Sunny, I'd love to hear your take on what I was saying earlier, which is that, to me, I think it's wonderful for both parties. I'm just skeptical given that EMC has had a history of these sorts of partnerships with FatWire before it was bought by Oracle, with SDL, and it really didn't make much of a bump because they've got such a wide base of sales folks that they're not out there necessarily interested in pushing their partners along. What did they say to you about this partnership and how important it was to their strategy?
Extremely important. And if not from a tactical perspective and actually the use of the product, but from a sales perspective, I mean, if we're going to talk money strictly, this gives them basically 700 extra salespeople selling the product for them in the States. So I think that's a huge benefit, obviously, but also the integration with the host of tools that EMC has available. If that's something that's going to be really pushed, it's hugely beneficial to Hippo's strategy. And one of the standout features for me, and I don't know if your take will be the same on this, but Pivotal is a pivotal part of this strategy, I think, and that's one of EMC's tools that they have available. And from a social media perspective, which is my forte, one of the things that they can do with Pivotal is actually analyze sentiment from Twitter and use that to customize the experience for the consumer on the site. And I think that is the future. I think that's huge, and I think it's the right step in the right direction of using that social sentiment, real-time sentiment, and using it to create extremely advanced customer experiences on the site to create more success and lead generation.
Look at Sunny tying in parts of our show. Here we are on a big data show, and Pivotal is EMC's big data suite, essentially. So what she's talking about there is Hippo being able to actually figure out how to tap into that kind of big data capabilities, those analytical capabilities, and then thus improve the experience.
She is our expert analyst in the Spotlight segment. You act surprised that she went there.
You know what? That did sound surprising in the same way that it sounds surprising to you that I am esteemed, but I meant no harm by that. One question I'll ask you, Sunny, is the question that I'll ask you is, did you yet get yourself a little orange Hippo? Because my kids, I don't want to show favoritism, but the best thing about Hippo from my perspective is they've got these little 4.5-inch Hippo, these little squishy Hippo things, and my kids, they grew up on those. Actually, they grew up on a diet of those because they had one. I brought one home from
Are they gummy hippos?
I brought one home from a trade. No, you're not supposed to, but mine did. I brought them home from a trade show, and next thing you know, it had no legs and no things. And I sent the picture, like I think I tweeted the picture to Hippo. Next thing I know, I got this FedEx box of like 10 hippos. So my kids have grown up with these little orange hippos. Isn't that great?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I would like to have a few of those as well. That's pretty amazing.
So like they literally, my kids will never forget Hippo. Like I mean, the orange hippo is like they know that. They
All
go
right,
to Hippo.
Sonny, let me reel this
Sorry,
segment back
sorry,
in
sorry.
before it goes off the rails completely.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about differentiators for Hippo from its competitors. Drupal is obviously a competitor. What differentiates Hippo, in your opinion, after looking deeper into this company?
I mean, the platform itself is PHP versus Java. So Drupal, I would say, yeah, it's for sure the main competitor. And when people are trying to figure out who they're going to go with, this is the main comparison to go with. But I think it's really based on preference. You're either looking at a full suite or you're looking at best of breed, which is connecting to other players like Salesforce and Marketo and really being able to integrate those into your strategy. And I think when you're talking about Hippo, you're talking more so about web content management as a focus, as opposed to, like I said, an entire suite. And depends on how much weight you put on awards and things like that. But I mean, if you're looking at something like that, Hippo did take home in 2013 CMS Critics' Choice Award for Best Open Source CMS. 2014, they took home People's Choice for Best Enterprise Java CMS. So depends on how much weight you put into awards like that. But I do think that those obviously do differentiate them from the competition.
Notable companies, notable organizations that are using Hippo.
They've got some pretty big, impressive players that they're working with. Disney World generates over 1.4 billion a year in sales, 70 million unique visitors a year, huge undertaking. So that's one of their customers. Another one is Randstad, which is the second largest recruitment firm in the world. Weleda, they're combining Hippo with an e-commerce software. So great integration for them, and it's helping them personalize the web experience. Hellerman Titan is another one. Largest cable company in the world, and Condé Nast, MailChimp, Bear, the list kind of goes on. They've got some pretty impressive customers in their lineup.
So what do you so I think it really pains me to hear constantly, and I don't mean this from you, I mean that they are compared to the likes of a company like a product like Drupal, et cetera, just because they're both open source. And I don't even love the idea of that the Critics' Choice Award, the category was open source, because there are so many different flavors in the same way of closed source or proprietary rather. So I actually think they're far more comparable even to an SDL or an Adobe or whatever, just given the product's capabilities, that it is more fairly enterprise oriented. They don't nearly have the breadth of capabilities because unlike Adobe, they don't have all those features and functions of things, but I think in terms of the robust ability for it to be able to support fairly complex environments and complex content needs, I think it's more comparable to those. I wonder, A, Sonny, your impression on that, and B, if you can just take a minute to tell us about kind of the new things that they're liking to talk about, which is this notion of content performance. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I agree with you for sure. And I think maybe I sound like a broken record saying most of the people we talk about, their competitors are Adobe and Sitecore. And I would say that that's the same case here for Hippo. And yeah, absolutely. I think Drupal is a comparison, but I do think that their capabilities are probably a little stronger. And when it comes to the functionalities of the platform, it's not about it just being a toolbox. So that's kind of how I see it, and I see it being something that is great for integrating with other opportunities, and that's where I think this EMC partnership is a huge benefit to them. If I'm not taking the skeptical side, if it goes according to how they say it's going to go, and if the success of the partnership is actually going to be optimal for their side and not just for EMCs. But as far as the future, it's pretty exciting for Hippo. So there's a new version coming out in May, another iteration of what they're doing, and I think that's great about this company is they're kind of always staying on the pulse of how they need to be changing and developing. And Scott, I mean, this is something that you can touch on, but they're really building on the content performance aspect of it. So really taking those analytics and seeing how not just pushing out the content, but also seeing how it's performing and customizing based off of that. And yeah, Scott, I'd love to get your thoughts on what that's going to do for the company.
Yeah, I think, first of all, this is, they were really, Hippo has transformed nicely, as you said. They were very, their sole purpose in life was just to be a content management system, and they wanted to do nothing else. They just wanted to kind of be that part of the larger ecosystem. They've very much transformed to start to include other capabilities that they think that it's going to appeal to marketers. And one of them is this idea that you mentioned about content performance. And I think the idea there is that they start to get into the notion of analytics. But the thing about analytics today is typically it's a tag on a page. And so marketers are able to see how a page performed, but a page is composed of a whole lot of content. And because Hippo has this very purist view of content management, that content is disparate pieces that can be reused in lots of places, made multilingual, et cetera, now their notion of content performance tells not only how that page performed, but frankly, more importantly, how the disparate pieces of content performed, not only on a particular page they were pulled in, but in all the pages they were pulled in, across throughout your site or multiple sites. And so I think that's really important that people can see the performance of it within the context. And that really allows you to make, I think, better decisions. And so I think that's a really interesting take on that capability. So
Sunny, let's finish up with maybe one reinforcing thought from you. Or let me ask you the question this way. You spent time with this company. You've done a lot of research on Hippo. We've talked all about the latest, you and Scott both. What's the one thing that really sticks out to you about Hippo?
I personally I feel like I'm always doing this in this segment, but I'm very excited about this partnership with EMC. I think it's just going to catapult them into a different level in this space. And I think they are being recognized now as a front runner in this space, and definitely more competitive than they used to be, and gaining more momentum, and obviously working with some huge clients, like I mentioned. So I'm very excited to see the next iteration of the product, and also to see how this partnership with EMC is going to develop, because I think that it definitely could make them top tier.
All right, Sunny, thanks for your time. If you would like to reach out to Sunny, you can find her on Twitter at Sunny Lenarduzzi. She is unique as her name implies. Trust us. And you see that on this show every time. Sunny, thanks for your time.
Thank you so much.